welcome you to Inovare. Yeah, this is where we innovate. This is the podcast where changes are made. If you're not growing, then you're dying. Innovation is the key to surviving. This is Inovare, where we ain't scared to make that change and create a new way. If you're ready to learn and sit back and just chill, it's about to get real. This is Inovare.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Inovare podcast. Thanks again for checking us out. If you guys have not done so already, please join our Facebook group, our private Facebook group. Join the Inovare Mindset. You can look that up, and we'll help you develop a mindset. And speaking of mindset, I have a great guest with you today. So while you're in that group and joining that group, you can follow along with everything she's telling you about, because it's all great stuff. Her name is Tara Oldridge. She believes that every woman has a powerful, profitable, and impactful business inside of them that God has created, or called them to create, rather. She is the creator of a Vision to Business, a 2-day workshop for women who have a deep sense they were made for more. Man, I'm having a hard time with words today, I tell you what. That helps them find a clear strategy and create a committed action plan so they can finally build an impactful business they love. She's the host of Entrepreneur Magazine's Top 20 podcast to listen to in 2020, which is called The Smart Woman Show. Welcome into the Inovare podcast, Tara Oldridge. Hey, how we doing?
Hey, super awesome. Thanks for having me. I know it's a bit of a mouthful.
I'm terrible with words. For somebody who hosts a podcast, and I, had a career in radio for a long time, if you'd believe it, and I can't read worth a damn. So you just got to stick with me. I interviewed a couple of different people, like neuroscientists and stuff, and their words are impossible to read. So I just dumbed that one down. So, but yeah, there's a lot of accomplishments there, and you've done a lot. So don't apologize for your accomplishments. Pretty awesome. So the way that I usually start these out is I ask people about their backstory. I think it's important to know where they've been, who they are, so that when we go through all of your accomplishments in that mouthful that I just read off of everything that you've done, we have an understanding of who you are as a person. So who is Tara Oldridge?
I know every single podcast starts off this way. Yeah. And I hate this
super
question.
Original, right?
No, it's it's important, and it's one of those questions. And I don't know if it's just me. I would actually I'm going to ask on my podcast, actually, The Smart Woman Show. I'm going to ask the next person I interview if they hate that question too, because it's like, it's my past, right? And so, and I get it. I'm happy to share. So I come from, don't get me wrong, I had food in the house, but I've been going to parties since I was 18 months old. I grew up with addiction and alcoholism all around me. I've got all of the good story. I've got sexual abuse. I've got, trailer parks and awful living conditions and broken homes, 6 divorces, many girlfriends. I really have all of it, sourcing abuse my entire life. I was bullied growing up, and not just a little bit bullied. I was on 2 separate occasions, I was beaten up by groups of girls. But what I really love to land is the point that how instrumental my father was, and the fact that he taught me how to dream at such a young age, and what a powerful excuse that was to escape my reality. And I think for him too, thinking back on it, just his ability to escape with me as we would drive around in these beat up cars. Oh my gosh, if I could show you a picture of this car, like, it would blow your mind, the vehicles we had. But we would dream. We would dream of bigger days, better days. Like, what would we have? And he was really good at just evoking that out of me. And so if there's one thing, if there's parents listening to this, I would say, if the one gift you can really give your kids, especially if you don't have a lot and you're building, is the ability to dream. It's really powerful.
And so with that dreaming, you talk a lot about aligning your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your calling. And so I'll just dive into that, when you're talking about dreaming, so there's multiple different ways to dream, right? Obviously we're asleep and our mind's wandering, right? That's the dreaming, but you're talking about a more dreaming where you're thinking about where you're going to go and what you could become, and there's multiple ways to do that, to plan for it, etc. So when you talk about aligning those thoughts and going after those dreams, what is it that you mean?
Well, I think it's evolved for me personally since being a child. I mean, dreaming really just, it was daydreaming. And it really boils down to vision. And vision always has the foundation of, what do you want? You know, what do you want out of your life? What do you want to create? What do you want to see? What do you want to smell? What do you want to taste? And then on top of that, really, it's a belief system that not only could you have that it's actually possible to have that, but that you're worthy of having that.
Yeah.
That's actually something that God said, you get to have that because you are worth it. Right.
Which is a hard lesson to teach us. And so I think, to circle it back to the beginning of this podcast and this show, where you said that you hate to talk about your past, I think a lot of that has to do with, from a very young age, at least for me, from a very young age, we're taught not to talk about ourselves. Right, we're saying, don't say this, don't say that. Be very humble, be very modest, speak about other people. And so from that, internally, oftentimes that leads to even increased self-doubt, or we want to kind of hide our accomplishments and go on from there. And so with that, right, when you're talking about dreams and allowing yourself the ability to go after those dreams and self-talk and say you are enough, you are worthy of going after that, are there things that we can do to overcome some of those things that we're taught about when we're little? Be humble, that sort of a mindset. Are there ways that we can overcome that?
I think that's a great question. I think that the number one thing that some people skip over is the fact that we don't even know what we're worth. And so the first step is to identify and acknowledge, really, first of all, where you're at. Get really radically honest about the mistakes you've made, what's not working, what is working, and identify where the breakdown is in your life, and own it and be responsible. Because without that, and I don't think there's a lot of people speaking into that, without that identification of what needs to be left behind, you can't move forward. And I don't think that it's so much that I don't want to talk about myself because I was told that I couldn't. I think there's probably an element of that, but I've done so much work that I'm so unattached from that part of my life. And I realized that the journey is what matters, but it's also I just want to talk about where I've gotten to, yes, all the crap's in the past, but I'm not dragging it along with me. And I'm not dragging it along with me because I've recognized and acknowledged that being a victim of my past doesn't serve me. And it's certainly really heavy to drag along, and it doesn't work in my future and in my vision and in my plans. So first step is identify what's not working, what you're holding on to, what's heavy, and find a way, find a community, find a coach, find a leadership training program that is going to support you in identifying what's not working and remove it. And know that that's possible. The second thing that's coming to me is really saying, and I would say this is maybe a step 2, is there's a big difference between deserving something and being worth something. Let's just put this out there. You don't deserve anything. None of us actually are deserving. The fact that we were born in a first world country, we don't even deserve that.
Yeah.
We don't deserve crap.
Yeah.
But we are worth it.
Yes. And that's the key part of that. And I think you touched on another thing that I don't want to skip over there is, there are tribes, as a lot often referred to. I've heard you refer to them, right? Where you have your tribes now and they can help you with the mindset. And so you're leaving your past in the past. And sometimes that means people, and having to leave people in the past, or people who don't, I don't know, they're not of the same wavelength. Maybe they bring you down, or maybe, I don't know, who knows, right? And so what's that like? Leaving your past, it's often easier, I'll say, to leave something that happened to you in the past that you want to just block out of your mind, right? So for me, I have Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed at 12 years old. Anyone who's ever listened to this podcast has heard this story 15,000 times. And so I had surgeries and all kinds of different stuff, right? And so it's easy for me to block out the pain and all that other stuff that I went through and pull the lesson out and keep going. But it's often harder to remove some of the people who were in my life that were negative influences or a part of a tribe that I used to be a part of. So what kind of steps can you take to remove the things that shouldn't be there, but that, stick along with you because maybe you have some sort of a connection to them as friends, family, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds really painful to remove somebody who you love out of your life. And so the best way that I can describe it, I'm just going to steal it right from my friend Lori Harder. She wrote a book called A Tribe Called Bliss, and she nails it on the head because nobody wants to get rid of people that they love. And so really it's all about perception. It's all about perspective. And what if you didn't have to remove people, but you replaced them? So I've got my best girlfriends. We grew up together and we've taken completely different paths. Some of them have chosen to be moms. Some of them have chosen to work in corporate. Some of them have chosen medical fields, but none of them are doing what I'm doing. And I don't care who you are. What I'm doing is not what most people are doing in the world. Let's just be clear. And so it's about hey, when somebody doesn't understand you, when somebody's not aligned with you, when somebody doesn't really get you and they form judgments around that, it's our responsibility as leaders not to judge, criticize, condemn them back for not believing in you or not giving you what you need from them or not understanding, but to replace the energy of their friendship. So now, my girlfriends who don't quite understand what I'm up to in the world, they're like, Tara, you're crazy. What do you do? I'm like, okay, so you get to be my birthday party, my wine drinking, my coffee going, my gossip girlfriends. That's where I get to, replace them as that. It's about moving people around in your life. Now, I had an uncle who would actually get on my Facebook Lives and what do they call it when you're in a comedian show and you heckle? When you heckle, he was heckling me, telling me shut your mouth, you don't know what you're talking about. And I had to block him.
Yeah.
And here's another thing, and I think this is really important, having to and getting to. Perspective on words and language. This goes down to mindset too, and I realize I'm digressing, but I think this is important. It's I got to make the choice to stand in my power that this conversation that he was having didn't work for me. And I wasn't in a conversation about him being bad or me being right and him being wrong. I was in a conversation of this energy doesn't work inside of my vision. And that's why it's so clear or so important to be clear on your vision. Yeah. Because if you're not clear on your vision, you won't know what works inside of it and what doesn't work inside of it. And when it comes to the people in your life and who's at your table, that 10-person table we talk about, you're not going to know who gets to be there because you don't even know what you want.
Wow. So when we talk about vision, and I want to focus on that for a second. So when in business, right? If I'm an organization, vision and core values are often talked about, but we don't really talk about those same core values and those same visions as individuals, right? It's more, what are you going to do with, what are you going to do with your career? Who are you going to be here? What is your business going to do here? But as individuals, that's also really important to define our own personal core values and define who we are as a person so that exactly what you're talking about, I can more quickly make decisions on what's important to me and what's best for me personally. So how do I, as an individual or somebody listening, how do I find my personal core values? Is it the same as finding a business's core values?
I mean, I'm Christian, so I find everything in the Bible. Mm-hmm. So as far as the Bible says, be humble, be kind, be loving. And I mean, core values, I think that's a bit of a buzzword right now. I'm not so aligned with it. Be a good person.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? Well, for me, I know that when I am confident, when I'm standing in my power, and when I'm being loving, that's when I'm most impactful. That's when I make the greatest difference in people's lives. And on top of that, I would say maybe the fourth one is trust. Trust yourself. Trust that burning desire inside of you, and trust your voice. Trust that what is coming out of your mouth, you're being responsible for, and that it matters.
Yeah.
So be humble, be kind. Tim McGraw said that. I mean, the core values of being a human is love one another. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Love God, love others, love yourself. Boom. Core values.
Yeah. So I didn't send you this in the show notes or anything like that, but there's a really good book that I read when I was younger. Well, many years ago, I'll just say. It was called I Am Third, and it's by this guy named Gale Sayers, who was a running back for the Chicago Bears. But the thought process was, I'm third in line, right? There's God, family, and then myself. And so if you put others first and you have that giving mentality that you're a servant of others, then you'll go much further in life. Not only because people will trust you more, but you'll have more of a spirit that will be more uplifting. Whereas you're putting yourself first, then not only are you putting everybody else down, and they're second, but the steps and anything that you're putting forward, whether it's core values or anything else that you want to call it, they're selfish reasons, and those aren't always the ones that are going to get you wherever it is that you want to go. I realized very young, I didn't realize very young. I learned later in life that the reason why I wasn't making it in radio is because that was a me thing. That wasn't a family thing. It wasn't what was best for my family. It was what I thought was best for Roy. And it wasn't until that I started putting my family first or other people first that I actually got to see what my true purpose, things that I could actually do in this world, and who I could help. And that more, aligns with who I have ultimately become. And this is something that you touch a lot on, right? Finding your vision, finding your purpose. And so with that servant mentality, this is a loaded question, right? But how do you find your purpose? How does somebody just step out and say, you know what, this is going to be me? Does it start with being a servant?
So I don't know if you know this about me, Roy, but I actually have an entire series of trainings. Did you know this? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Are we
leaving this?
Okay. Good. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, servant heart. Servants Who Sell is one of my keynote speaking engagements that I do. Servants Who Sell. First of all, if you're in sales, I don't know what your main audience is here, but if you're in sales and you've got any place to get, any deadline to meet, any quota to attach to, any bonus you're trying to hit, that's about you. And if you can't honestly look yourself in the mirror and wake up and say, I'm going to make a difference in these 10 people today because I'm going to listen, I'm going to understand them before having them understand what product I have, what service I'm selling, whatever it is that you're up to in the world, you will block the flow of abundance. That is my entire principle and the foundation of my company is serve first, which means vision, vision, vision. Listen, listen, listen. Ask the person what they want. Maybe they don't even want what you're selling. You're assuming they want it. Maybe they don't want it. Maybe it's not part of their vision, but maybe your friend has something for them. I would say that 30% of what I sell is other people's stuff because it's just not a fit, or they don't want it, or it's not a good time for them. And that's because I genuinely put their needs first.
Which builds trust, which builds just everything about your brand, right? It's people will then know that it's so many, I feel like so oftentimes now in entrepreneurship and business and sales, people try to be a Swiss Army knife where, you hear that, what is it? Master of none, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. And you don't have to do everything, and nobody can do everything. And it's okay to send somebody somewhere else, where I feel like if you had said that, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, people would scream, what do you mean? Why are you sending him out the door? We can do this thing that maybe it's not as good, or maybe it doesn't really help them, but we're getting the money, right? And so that shift.
Or this, you left money on the table?
Right. Yeah. Right. How dare you, right?
Unreal.
Cardinal sin. So yeah, I'm all about the servant, and you learn so much more by understanding, and this gets back to the things we've talked about so far, by understanding who we are and what we're good at and our passions. Then we can really understand what we're best able to serve at. I can't serve somebody else if I'm pretending to be, some fitness person, and I can't go give somebody fitness advice when I can't even do it myself. Just because somebody asked me for it doesn't mean that I'm the right person to respond to that. And so I love that. And so with servant, and I'm going to make it a hard transition here, a hard left. You talk, your audience is women. And so I feel like you have such a unique perspective, and it's one that my wife shares as well, is that so oftentimes, and if I'm speaking out of line, please talk over me, because I'm not a woman and I don't really understand. I am just watching what my wife goes through and hear her tell the story. But women so oftentimes put other people's needs first. It's always them last, right? We talked about the I am third, where it's God, family, self, but I feel like women take that almost to, well, not almost, I think, to an extreme, where they're putting other people's needs first, and they're saying, okay, you get ready, you eat, you do whatever, and I'll eat whatever's left, or I'll take a shower later or at night, or I'll adjust my schedule around my children or my spouse. And so how do women change their mindset, or should they change their mindset to adjust to putting themselves first? I know we talked about that I am third, but that's not always 100% I am third, right?
Yeah, this is a fascinating question, and I don't know that I am going to give you the answer that you want.
That's okay.
But I am a firm believer that as women, we victimize ourselves. It's very easy for us to stand in the background and be like, oh my gosh, like I'm just doing too much, and choose overwhelm. There's no reason why you can't stand in your power, stand in your confidence, have a powerful conversation with your husband around, hey, listen, like I've decided that I'm going to take golfing lessons Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. And I'm asking you for your support in that, and have powerful conversations. It's really easy for women to assume this overwhelmed, oh my gosh, it's so much. Here's the hard truth. Women are way more powerful than men. We just are. And we can cook the breakfast and, have a shower at the same time somehow. We just can. And that's powerful. So again, we're bringing it back to perspective, and really, and we'll change the word here, like really being responsible. Being responsible. And I was saying, actually, I was just in my Smart Woman group this morning talking about this. There's 4 levels of responsibility. I'm not responsible. I'm half responsible. I'll take responsibility. And the 4th level, which women really get to learn to operate from, is I am responsible. I am the nucleus of my family. I am the creator of my universe. And to be responsible for what they're seeing. So if they're seeing chaos in their home, they get to address that, and they get to not come at it as like, I can't do this all on my own, but they get to come at it as, okay, team, let's sit down. Here's what's working for mommy. Here's what's not working for mommy.
Yeah.
I love your support, and powerfully request support. There's no reason for a woman to be in overwhelm. We have every single thing inside of us to be powerful, profitable, impactful women in business, and powerful and impactful and profitable inside our homes, inside our marriages, even though the fruit may not be financial with our husbands, but there's other fruits and profits. Intimacy, connection, wholeheartedness, time spent. It is not up to our husbands, our children, to make us feel whole. We're not victims of our families, of our time. We're powerful.
I love
that.
So
that's what I got for you on that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you say that what I was looking for. I don't know what I was looking for there, right? I am the other side of the coin here, right? Like dad is dad and mom play very different roles in the household. And I know people try to say that they're, oh, well, everybody is the same and whatever, and there's gender roles, and that's a whole nother conversation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the way that inside the household, the roles that a woman is played, whether it's fair or not, is very different than the dad. I don't know why. My kids came out of the womb and their mom's their favorite. It's not me. I try and love them just as much. I feel like I play with them. I kiss them, carry them up to bedtime, but who gets the story at the end of the day, right? It's mom. It's not dad. Dad doesn't read it good. I don't know. We went over that at the beginning of the show that I can't read, so maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But for whatever reason, mom reads the better of the story. And so I feel like with that comes so much more pressure. And this was always a question that it's long been a conversation with my wife, and she always says, if you ever have a mom who talks about the household, ask her this question. So I again apologize that this is not on the show notes, but it popped back into my mind, is that when you're managing your children and you're managing these multiple schedules, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? How do you know that you're managing other people's schedules, and how do you fit your own schedule into that work as well?
You learn to powerfully request support. Because the truth of the matter is, when you're multitasking, you're not doing anything well. You've got to create a productivity schedule inside of your home, because the role of the woman is changing. And I do realize as you're speaking that we've been programmed as women to fit a mold that doesn't exist anymore. Right. That mold is broken, even though society is still kind of trying to cram us in there. My daughter, she will never have to fit into that mold, and no one will expect her to. And I won't teach her even what that mold is. Mm-hmm. And so the best thing you can do as a woman is get real about your time. So time chunk, time block. I work Monday to Friday, 3 weeks out of the month from 9 to 5. And I have powerfully put people in support positions to help me create that. My husband knows that. I have a house cleaner who comes on Wednesdays, and we hired a school teacher to do homeschool, because that's not part of my vision, being a homeschool mom.
Yeah.
So I powerfully requested that support. Did my husband agree? Did he think, my husband's very traditional. He's like, you wanted kids. I thought you wanted to be a mom. I'm like, yeah. And I'm an entrepreneur. I always have been. I've been doing lemonade stands since I was 5.
Yeah.
So what can I tell you? But instead of coming at as like, well, you don't support me, and you don't even know about what I want, and you don't ask me, I come at it as like, got it. I get it. I realize that the plan has changed and that I have a new idea, and I'm requesting your support. So what could that look like?
Yeah.
It's a different conversation.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple things there I want to hone in on. And so one, you said time blocking. So as I've done this show, and my whole first series of this podcast was all about time management. And through that, I learned, and there's probably more, but I learned that there are 2 types of people, right? There are list people and there are calendar people. I'm a list person. I have to write everything down. The day before, I'm writing everything down. There's a guy named Andy Frisella who talks about the power list, right? Where your 5 things, right? And so I do something similar. We call them bricks, right? And so those are your 5 mission critical tasks that you have to get done the next day, right? And so there's a whole model around that I've built out. But it sounds like you're on the other side of that spectrum, or you're a calendar person with your blocks. So explain to me, let's dive into that a little bit, that calendar, because I found more list people than calendar people, and the calendar vision is very it's kind of like another language to me. So I'd love for you to dive into that a little bit, about that block period that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. These are really, really great questions, because I've never heard of a list person or a calendar person. Yeah. And I wonder, do you interview mostly men?
I do.
I wonder if that's a male-female thing. That would be something cool to research. But yeah, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't get done. Huh. So I put everything into my calendar.
Interesting. So you block off the next day completely with, this is what we're doing at this time, everything. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Is that
I'm trained at the top of the hour to check in with myself. Did I create everything I needed to create that last hour?
Interesting.
And if I didn't, I tighten it up and I say, and I go back to my questions. What's working, what's not working, and my productivity level? Do I need a coffee? Did I go to the gym this morning? Am I being lazy? Am I self-sabotaging? But I'm trained this way.
Interesting. I'm going to look into that as far as the men versus women. And so you were I was listening to your show actually, and you talked about you had interviewed Ed Millett, who's a mutual. I wouldn't call him my friend because he doesn't know who the hell I am, but I follow him and have been a believer in his methodologies. And so he had talked about that too. And so as I was listening to him, and this is something that I wanted to bring up with you, was he said that his audience base is 60% female. And so that got me thinking, I'm like, well, I wonder what my demographic is. I should know this. And so I looked, and my demographic is 60% female. Mm-hmm. And so that got me thinking, and I asked my wife, I said, hey, Haley, you listen to podcasts, right? Oh yeah, I listen do all your friends listen to podcasts? Every single woman in her group chat listened to a podcast. Mm-hmm. My podcast, or my group of friends, 1 out of 4 people in my group listened to a podcast, and it was the Joe Rogan Experience, and they didn't even really listen to it. So to me, I started thinking, the thought process and the ideals of self-improvement and growth, from my experience, it starts with females. That women have been kind of like my wife has been talking about the law of attraction for like 10 years. I picked up on it like 5 years ago, you know? It's amazing how, and do you find that to be true as well? That women are just, and if so, where does this come from? That women have this tribe mentality, this groups, these what goes on in a women's group chat, and I won't dive into your group chat, but what I see and what my wife talks about, what they talk about is drastically different than what goes on in my group chats. Mine are memes and fart jokes, and my wife's group chat are empowerment and like help. It's a totally different world. Do you experience this as well? Is this like, where does this come from? These women who are lifting each other up?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. And I would start with unfortunately, men are the most poorly treated beings on this planet. You guys have been raised to fight alone, fight until you die, don't cry, don't open up, get it done, and keep moving.
Yeah.
And as women, we have an advantage that we've been allowed to experience our emotions. We've been allowed to lean on each other for help. We've been allowed to show up and not have it all together and be held and hugged and loved. And those are basic human needs. And so that, my intention and my vision for this world is that men really start to be more vulnerable and open up and share, again, what's not working as being a man. And so that's my first thought on that. Also, on the women's side of things, we haven't had any man who wants to sit down with us and explain the last 200 years of e-commerce, finance, stock markets to us, because what do we know? We haven't been trained to know that. 3% of venture capital money is allocated for women and minorities. And I'm not talking about 3% for the women and 3% for the minorities. I'm talking about it's a lump sum. Why? Because women don't know. And so what have we had to do? We've had to black market this stuff. We've had to go underground. And women are tribal by nature. We just are. We're tribal by nature, probably because we've been allowed to be. Come over for coffee. Those big coffee pots that make 12 cups of coffee? My mom used to sit around the table and just like pour coffee three pots later.
Yeah.
And so we're tribal by nature, and we've kind of had to pave our own way. And so we're used to the climb, we're used to the battle, and we've recognized the importance of community.
Interesting.
And community is a hot commodity. I don't know about what you're doing in your business, but my communities, I have 2 separate communities, and they make tens of thousands of dollars every month.
Communities, you speak on like Facebook groups? Is that type of a community, or?
I have 3 Facebook groups. One is free, the Smart Women group. You're all the women listening are welcome to search the Smart Women group. It is free. I pour into it at 10 a.m. Monday to Friday. Join that. But then I have 2 paid masterminds, and it's all community.
Excellent. So that leads right into how can people get in touch with you? And sounds like that's the number one place that you want people to get in touch, or how do they reach out to you?
I'm really everywhere. I'm on, except for TikTok. I can't dance. TikTok scares the crap out of me. I hope somebody takes it down. So you can find me on Instagram at the Tara Oldridge, I think is my Instagram handle. I don't even know. That's how much I don't care about social media. And Facebook. I would recommend my Facebook group because that's my favorite. It's where I pour into. It's called the Smart Woman Group, and we're really just rising together. And I'm doing a series right now called What a Smart Woman Wants at 10 a.m. every day, Monday to Friday.
Awesome. And you got that from What a Woman Wants, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I see. I told you I stalked you down. I did my research. And so before we close, I just wanted to say first, thank you so much. And I appreciate everything. I listen to your podcast. I appreciate everything you're doing. And so Capital Presence, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Capital Presence, which is the business that my wife and I own, we are women owned. And so we are EDWOSB is our official certification. So economically disadvantaged women owned small business. And we're in the tech industry. So we're big, advocates of women in technology because of the gender gap and everything else. And one thing that when we went through our certifications and we became cloud computing certified women owned small business, 5% of tech startups are women-owned. 3 of them are federal CSPs, a cloud solutions provider. 3, not 3 like on the East Coast, 3 in the country.
Yeah.
1 are in the East Coast, and that's us. It is unbelievable the amount of disconnect. And, that's why I knew that was going to be a great conversation. I wanted to have you on and talk about that. And because there's no reason. It's not like there's no reason why. And I put a computer in my daughter's hand the second that she knew what the hell it was, because, we don't read the Disney like frou-frou crap. You know what I mean? Like, hey, that Moana movie, that's badass. See what, like women you can do whatever the hell you want, girl, do you? So I appreciate you so much. And guys, please reach out to her. Join that community and take a master class while you're at it. So thanks, Tara. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
Well, guys, that does it. That's another episode of the Inovare podcast. Thanks for checking us out. As always, you can listen to this episode and all episodes at iTunes, Spotify. We're on like 9 platforms, which is pretty cool. Then, if you want to watch podcasts, you can catch them live every Friday, 4 o'clock, or you could just go to YouTube and watch them all in a row and binge watch them or whatever the kids are doing these days. So guys, go ahead and check that out, InovarePodcast.com. Download your free mind map while you're there and join the community Inovare Mindset on our Facebook. Thanks for hanging out, guys. See you.